President Biden is now on his way back from Europe, where he attended a NATO summit in Madrid. During that summit, the president announced a boost to the U.S. military presence in Europe. NATO members also voted to accept Finland and Sweden into the military alliance, expanding NATO's border with Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russia will respond in kind if NATO deploys soldiers and military infrastructure to the Nordic countries.
Finland and Sweden are sovereign nations, and they have the right to choose their own path and to join NATO. We have welcomed them into our alliance, and we are, of course, prepared for any eventuality.
NATO is significantly increasing the number of soldiers on standby who can rapidly respond to threats from 40,000 to more than 300,000. Sweden and Finland will formally join NATO next week when they sign their protocol paperwork. For more on the NATO summit, let's check in live with WYMT's White House correspondent John Decker, who's been in Madrid all week. And John, what are some of the key takeaways for you from this summit? What was accomplished?
Well, several things were accomplished. This was a consequential summit, and you don't see that happen that often. The biggest military expansion in Europe by both the U.S. and NATO since the Cold War. You ticked off some of those things that will happen. That rapid reaction force increasing in size from 40,000 troops to 300,000 troops. And also President Biden announcing a permanent base in Eastern Europe, in Poland. That has never happened before. And lastly, the big headline, certainly for so many people, is the expansion of NATO from 30 members to 32 now that it has invited Finland and Sweden to join the military alliance.
Well, President Biden and NATO are touting that strengthened alliance, but how is Russian President Vladimir Putin reacting to all this?
A little bit of a mixed reaction, actually, Steve. President Putin was asked about this at a press conference today. He said initially, I have no problem with Sweden and Finland joining NATO. They can do what they want, he said. But at the same time, he said, there would be consequences, and Russia would respond in kind if infrastructure, if troops are moved into the sovereign territory of Finland and Sweden associated with NATO. So that's a warning coming from President Putin today. The reaction to that warning coming from Finland and Sweden was essentially a shrug of the shoulders. They say, we're doing what we're doing to make our countries more secure, and we will be secure once we're under the NATO security umbrella.
I want to turn to something else now. President Biden also making news on the domestic front. He says he'd support an exception to the Senate's filibuster rules to help codify Roe v. Wade. Of course, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell among those criticizing what the president had to say earlier today. What are the chances of this happening?
0%. That's 0%, and I say that because it's a 50-50 Senate, Steve, and you need all 50 Democrats, if you're President Biden, to go along with what he wants. And right now, as things stand, there are 2 Democrats who are very firm in their opposition to changing the Senate filibuster rules. Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia and also Senator Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona. As long as they remain opposed to that idea that President Biden mentioned today during his closing press conference here in Madrid, that simply will not happen.
Well, also today, some history when it comes to the Supreme Court. As we mentioned in our first half hour, Ketanji Brown Jackson sworn in as the first black woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. Is it a given that she will join the High Court's liberal voting bloc?
Well, it depends upon the case. I've covered the Supreme Court for quite some time. I'm a member of the Supreme Court bar. You can never predict essentially what every justice is going to do on every single case. That being said, I think that most Democrats and most court observers, for that matter, do expect her to vote in a very similar vein as Stephen Breyer, the justice that she is replacing on the U.S. Supreme Court.
There's been some concern after the Roe v. Wade decision that LGBTQ rights and other things may be in jeopardy. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, there has to be a case in controversy that comes before the U.S. Supreme Court on that particular issue. The Supreme Court, for instance, can't just issue a holding without a case coming before the court. In the next term, and the Supreme Court has announced some of its cases for the next term. There are no cases involving the LGBTQ community. For the foreseeable future, the law of the land as it relates to issues like same-sex marriage will remain in place. And with that recent Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, Steve, although one justice, Justice Clarence Thomas, said that he would like to revisit that particular issue, he's out there on an island by himself. The other conservative justices has said their decision concerning overturning Roe v. Wade does not apply to other issues that the Supreme Court has already decided.
All right, John Decker, thank you very much. There will be more about all of this tonight at 6:30 on the CBS Evening News. Well, a toasty afternoon underway around the mountains today. We've got plenty of sunshine in areas that aren't seeing a few spotty showers and thunderstorms to cool us off. Most of us are just dealing with the sweltering heat. High knob camera at UVA-wise, plenty of sunshine, but again, a few of those clouds trying to bubble their way up into maybe a scattered shower or storm out towards southwest Virginia. Buffalo Mountain here in Perry County right now. Again, a few more clouds trying to work through. They sit at 93 right now, at least at Perry, here in Perry County. You see the temperatures around the region, upper 80s to near 90. Hazards at 93. It's 92 in Monticello, and plenty of 90s around the region. Williamsburg, though, down to 86. The reason? Well, we've got a few showers and storms, not quite to Williamsburg yet, but you're likely seeing the dark clouds to the west if you're in Whitley County right now. We've been seeing quite a bit of heavy rainfall through portions of McCreary County and southern Pulaski County. These storms are not moving very fast, so we could be dealing with some isolated high water issues in some parts, especially if these storms continue to move rather slowly like they are. For tonight, those storms will eventually begin to diminish. You always want to download that WYMT weather app, but we definitely want to talk about tonight's forecast. Right around 70. It's going to be muggier, but those storms do look to end as we head into tonight. I'll have the very latest on the potential for more showers and storms as we head towards the end of the work week into our holiday weekend, and that's all coming up in just a few minutes. Steve? All right, Evan, thank you. Questions are being raised after an important part of a roadside makeshift Veterans Memorial in southern Kentucky was taken. You've probably seen this memorial on the side of the Hal Rogers Parkway if you've driven by. Folks in Clay County are scratching their heads as to why someone would steal an American flag. WYMT's Phil Pendleton spoke with one of those who upkeeps the roadside memorial and has more.
In 2004, Sergeant Glenn Stanfield was in a very tragic accident here that took his life. So a local resident decided that he would build this memorial. But here recently, he's had to replace the flag on top, not once, but twice. Ronnie Gay and others in the area keep up the memorial. Volunteers raised a flagpole, they keep the grass mowed and do minor landscaping work to keep the memorial up and looking good. Some time ago, the flag was taken down. They replaced it. Then about 3 to 4 days later, it was taken down again. The motive or reasons unknown.
We have a lot of comments on this, Sheriff, and we're going to try to keep on doing it, but we're going to try to catch whoever's doing this and put an end to this.
Those that designed and built this memorial have secured the flag a little bit more this time. And I'm also told they're exploring other options in hopes of catching whoever is doing this. In Clay County, Phil Pendleton, now back to you.
Gay says he did not know Sergeant Stanfield personally, but believes in making sure veterans and memorials to them are taken care of. President Biden is calling on Congress, as we mentioned a few moments ago with John Decker, to help codify Roe v. Wade into law, calling the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn the nearly 50-year-old ruling destabilizing. Tomorrow, he plans to meet with governors of states where abortion remains legal to see what other actions they think he could take. And in a news conference at the end of the NATO summit in Madrid, the president said he would support changing Senate rules to meet this goal.
If the filibuster gets in the way, it's like voting rights. It should be, we provide an exception for this.
Changing those rules would pave the way for an abortion rights bill to pass the Senate with 51 votes rather than the 60 votes needed now. But as John Decker mentioned a moment ago, he thinks the chances of that happening are 0. We'll have, of course, more about this as we go along. Now, a judge has cleared the way for abortions to resume in Kentucky, temporarily blocking the state's near total ban on the procedure triggered by the Supreme Court ruling that overturned Roe v. Wade. Thursday's ruling comes in a lawsuit filed on behalf of abortion clinics, which said the ban violated the state's constitution. Kentucky's Attorney General plans to fight the order. The case reflects battles being waged in courts across the country now after the Supreme Court left it up to the states to decide whether abortion is legal within their borders. If eventually upheld, Kentucky's ban could have an impact on a lot of women, including domestic violence victims. Advocates like Darlene Thomas are concerned what a permanent abortion ban would mean for survivors of intimate partner violence. They say those that abuse use multiple tactics to gain and maintain control.
They may destroy their birth control. They may not allow them to have access to any kind of birth control methods. If a survivor doesn't want to continue a pregnancy, should they find themselves pregnant, don't want to continue that pregnancy, they may deny their ability to do that. We're concerned that the lack of choice will put our survivors at greater risk of harm.
Data from the National Center for Health Statistics shows that homicide is the leading cause of death during pregnancy, and most pregnant women are killed by a partner. Thomas explained that at this time there's no way to know the true depth of what a permanent abortion ban would mean for survivors. One project in Pikeville is putting a focus on prosthetics, working to create access in a different way. With the number of wounded veterans he has encountered and other people he has heard from in the community, veteran Darren Hilton started stitching together an idea to create better access. He learned how to sew zippers onto pant legs to make them easier to adjust for those who require prosthetics, and is now working to share the knowledge with the community.
The project, what we're designed here at the Post is whether it's a veteran or another community member, if they know of somebody who has a prosthetic device and they want to learn how to put zippers in, I'll gladly give a class in here.
Coming up at 6, hear from the first student to take the class, who also happens to be Hilton's teenage daughter. These mountains are rich with history, and luckily there are still people residing within them that want to preserve that history, like those with the Appalachian Artisan Center in Hindman. The center held a forged tomahawk workshop where students were guided by a blacksmith and provided the necessary materials to make their own 18th century tomahawk.
You know, it just exposes people to things they normally may never get exposed to. Some will come and do it for a day, and sometimes you've started somebody on a life path. You know, they will continue to do it.
The center hosts workshops like this a few times a month. They also host workshops where they teach students to make knives, hatchets, and other tools used throughout Appalachian history. Coming up on First at 4, hundreds of tiny flying machines will take to the skies this 4th of July weekend, why some cities are trading fireworks for drones.
And continuing to watch the radar for the potential for showers and storms returning to the mountains. The details on what that looks like as we head into your holiday weekend coming up.